rand 50 naira. Ó ti dé yọkàn 700 naira. Ọmọ mi lọ school. Mo kàn sọ fún ọmọ ẹ̀ mo ní mi rò pé máa lọ school lónìí. Ọmọ ní ìsìn ó lè jẹ bọ́tà lórí búrẹ́dì mọ́ o. 70 naira ní tẹ́lẹ̀ ó ti di 1.4.
Gbogbo àwọn kíní kékèké táwọn ọmọ yẹn rà ní 20 naira kò sí mọ́ 60 naira 70 naira ni. Very soon 50 naira náà máa go out of the way. Àwa kù 100 naira. So kò ní sí àtò lè fọmọ ẹ̀ ní 50 naira lọ ra nǹkan jẹ mọ́.
Ẹja ìmọ̀ ẹ̀ tí wọ́n ṣe ìwé ọ̀gẹ̀dẹ̀ jẹ́ o. Wọ́n ṣe wọ́n sá o, tá a fẹ́ pa wá kú.
Ó pọ̀ ju òye èèyàn kankan lọ. Olówó gan ti di tálíkà. Àtàwọn gógógó látàrí 1000 nìyẹn. Gbogbo kan báyìí lówó ebi ń pa wá. Ẹ̀wà hó 120 ní ìlàjì tí mo lọ rà ní 50. Láàrí rèé o, ẹ̀yin ọmọ Nàìjíríà. Ẹni méjì rè kú ní ìsàlẹ̀ ọjà lánàá. Gbogbo ti wà dé rèé o, ẹjẹ́ ìbá wa bẹ̀ wọ́n. Ẹ bá wa rọ̀ wọ́n, kó torí Ọlọ́run. 700 là ń rà, níṣẹ́ ó ti di 2005. Nǹkan tí ò ń ṣe nǹkan jíjẹ o.
Tẹ́lẹ̀ 1000 là ń rà. Nísìnyí ó ti di 5000 6000.
Ẹja ti wọ́n jù o. A rà ju 8000 lọ tẹ́lẹ̀ o. Ó ti di 30,000. Sandini 120. Padi Sandini 120 o. Pote 50,000. Tí o gbèsè pọ̀ jù lẹ́ o. Gbèsè pọ̀ lọ́wọ́ gbowó ìjọba ìyá àrí ìdápadà o.
Gbogbo àwọn kíní kékèké táwọn ọmọ yẹn rà ní 20 naira kò sí mọ́ 60 naira 70 naira ni.
Agriculture remains a veritable source of avenue for food supply, industrial raw materials, employment, means of combating climate change, and revenue for any nation. Unfortunately, what we have today in Nigeria is hunger, shortage of industrial raw materials, and its attendant low capacity utilization and dwindling earnings. The diversion of attention from agriculture, which was once the mainstay of Nigeria's economy, was because of the favorable oil shocks of the 1950s, 60s, and 70s. This ushered in the era of oil boom, which made agricultural products less competitive, and emphasis was placed on importation of cheap agricultural food and capital items. The overdependence on oil has not only promoted economic wastage and mismanagement of scarce resources, but it has also made the Nigerian economy susceptible to external shocks. As we speak, Nigerian farmers face numerous challenges in their agricultural endeavors, which today's show aims to explore. The significance and importance of the agricultural sector cannot be overstated. On Viewpoint, we aim to shed light on the obstacles faced by those in the agricultural sector in Nigeria and the implications of the nation's food security and economic development. You're welcome to the show Viewpoint, where we discover perspectives and embrace dialogue. I'm Odiawa AI. With me, I've got economic analyst extraordinaire Pelumi Awe. Welcome to the show.
I'm happy to be on this side of the table.
Join us in the next phase of the show.
All right.
Could even see the market women from the beginning of the video ranting. Now, these are market women who are just ranting. What about the consumers? What kind of ranting would they even be churning out there? Now, the farmers also at the other receiving end, they are also in the chain of agricultural command here, because they are the farmers who produce the items for sale by these market women, and these market women sell these products to the consumers. Now, even the poultries now, as we speak now, close to 65% now are totally shut down. Why? Because of the administration's inadequacies. Now, could you give us or provide us with an overview of the agricultural sector in Nigeria?
We can liken it to the tale of a man who just married a second wife and decided to discard his first wife. Because before discovery of oil in 1956, agriculture was our main driver, was the main driver of the economy. You had groundnut being exported by the Northerners. You had cocoa being exported by those of us in the West. Yes, you had palm oil being exported by those of us in the East. You had the Southerners export coal at the time. So agricultural sector played a major role in our economy. I would say to you that at the time, even presently, it's the largest employer of labor. You have about 70% of the labor force being absorbed in the agricultural sector whether directly or indirectly. And again, it contributes heavily to our GDP. You have about 22 to 30% of the entire GDP of the nation being gotten from the agricultural sector. So we cannot discard that place at all. But the video we saw before now just made it clear. It's a statement that makes it clear of what's happening in Nigeria at the moment in its entirety. And we cannot just, we can't pin it on one thing. We could say that the CBN has played its role so far. We could say that the federal government has played its role so far. But the agricultural sector over the years has been a major force in ensuring that our economy moves to the next phase. And I will say this again to you, that again, we made a lot of money from exporting goods. So what happens is when you invest so much in the agricultural sector, what happens is that you can produce more. And when you can produce more, it means you can export more. And when you can export more, it means that you can attract foreign exchange into your country. So we have a situation at the moment that speaks a lot, and I think we're going to get that at the moment of the show, that speaks a lot about the fact that so many things are not going so well. And I think you asked me a question about that. I presume already that will come in soon.
Okay, now, judging from these which you have mentioned now, the pyramid, the granite pyramids from the north, each region at a point in time had what it could brag about when it came to the agricultural sector. The cocoa at a point in time in the west was used to supply soldiers who were in World War I and World War II because they needed something to eat quickly to get back into the battlefield. Now, all these things just disappeared, not just because of the oil boom, if we will say, or the discovery of oil, particularly probably in 1956 in Oloibiri. Now, the question now is, why was it a question of greed? Why? Because we had the Rockefellers who had the oil boom in the US now. So we could see a typical replica here in Nigeria, whereby the first wife, as you put it now, had been dispersed. Now, could we see, are we right to say it's a case of greed here? That was why the old wife was discarded.
Well, I think there are many things we can say about that as to why we left what was working and then moved to what was next. I think first is we lacked foresight. Because when you keep drilling oil in a particular site, after a while, you mess that place up. And then you will then want to go to a different site to drill. I'll give you an example. The Oloibiri discovery, I saw a video from that part where that place now has been deserted. The place where oil was discovered has been deserted. And you cannot talk about the negative impact of oil drillage, because part of what it does is there is something called oil spillage. And the people within that locality will not enjoy it as much as you want them to enjoy. So their water gets polluted, they can't fish anymore, things go wrong. First is we lacked foresight, that you don't discover one and let the other go. You keep both of them because we have these things here. Our land seems to be very fertile, but we seem not to see the need to take advantage of it. The second thing, apart from foresight, the second thing is that a level of low investment in that space, I would say. So when oil was discovered, like we mentioned already, people moved their attention from agriculture to the oil sector, and everybody decided to focus on that part. So the agricultural sector lacked a lot of investment, both from the government, both from the private sector as well. The other part you want to look at again is, and this is important, is security. Because when you don't secure the people who are producing stuff, they will not stay. We've seen cases in Benue State. We've seen cases in different parts of Nigeria where farmers are being killed and slaughtered. And nobody will want to go to the farm to farm and put it at the risk of his own life. So we're saying that many things have gone wrong so far. Also, you can mention limited access technology to say that there are tools in the world today. In fact, before the show, I was doing a research as to some of the countries in the world that make a lot of their GDP from agriculture. And you have Sierra Leone there. About 46% of its GDP is made from agriculture. And these people put in a lot of energy in ensuring that everything works. So what do they do? Sometimes they bring in new tools, invention, to improve, for instance, to improve results that they get. So a lot has gone wrong. A lot of things have gone wrong in that sector that have to be looked into. Because what happened is when our people left the farm and decided to focus on the other part, what then started to happen was that we started importing the things we could produce ourselves. And you can't drink oil. You can't really drink oil because food is a human need. People will always need to eat. And so when we left the farm to start looking for oil everywhere that's not lost, what happened was that we left a major source, because forever, there would be the need to consume. And that need exists even till now. So it boils down, circles back to my first point, that we lack foresight. People go to school to do agricultural engineering. They go to school to study agricultural science. And then they leave school, they don't get jobs. There are countries in the world that will employ graduates to fill in positions, take them to the farm to do stuff, because even when you were in school, there was the practical side of things where you are sent to the farm. I did economics in school for 5 years. And part of what we did was to go to school to do teaching practice. Well, I went to 2 schools to teach in Ondo State. And I know it happens as well for those people in, for instance, FUNAB, for instance, in Abeokuta, where they take them to the farm to try stuff out. So somebody leaves, you have students leave school. They don't have a job. When we can actually absorb them in, they apply their ideas to the farm. And then whatever ideas they've gotten from school, they put it out there. We pay them about 100K. I think for a start, that's still cool for a guy who just 22 years old, who just left school. It's still cool for him. He begins to apply the wisdom he has gotten from school, but that has not happened so far so good. So there's a lot to talk about, but I think these factors have contributed so much to how much of challenge we have faced so far so good.
Okay, you ended this argument now with the educational sector. Now, a situation whereby education now is not being addressed, this Japa syndrome sets in. Someone who read agri economics or someone who read agri science or anything related to agri, it has to do with production, maintenance of food. And to say, okay, this particular item, is it perishable? When does it expire? Is it harmful? All those kind of things come into cognizance. Now, the question now is, how well equipped are these prospective graduates now, from whether it's a BSc institution, a HND, practically speaking, from a theoretical or practical aspect, how well furnished are our students? Judging from the schools we see, they are not well furnished. So how can this be addressed? Because they treat it like a laissez-faire field of study or course of study that shouldn't be addressed, forgetting that people need to eat. Definitely, every working place, you and I are working. During our break time, we have to go and feed. It is one farmer that is actually producing that food. Now, what you've analyzed the challenges now. Now, coming from the educational sector now, concerning agriculture, why have our students neglected this particular part?
Well, to be fair, I used to teach a few students, prepare them for JAM, GC, and WAEC, and some of them at some point gained admission. And sometimes when students get admission like that, and you ask them, "Is this what you applied for? This is what they gave you?" Usually, when you hear somebody who is in the Greek line, you say, "Is what they gave me." I think what we need to do is to make that sector attractive, and just like we have rebranded the oil sector, where anybody who comes out to say, "I work in Shell," people can actually come out to say, I work in Shell," or come out to say, "I work here, I work there, I work in Mobile." I serve in Akwa Ibom State, so you have Mobile there in Eket. And we need to make agricultural sector attractive, to say that, see, these are the benefits of you working in this space, and to even see the long-term benefits. I live in a locale where it feels like everybody who sells foodstuff attend Redeem Church. Every 5 minutes check, you find somebody selling foodstuffs there. We need to make this sector attractive. See, it's a long-term thing. And to also say that there are jobs waiting for you in this space. The opportunities in the agricultural sector is so endless. Now, like I said, it directly or indirectly is so endless. 70% of our workforce are in the agricultural sector. So saying that, okay, when you're done, there is this, you can earn 100K, 80,000 naira or 100,000 naira for somebody who just left school. That's a huge amount of money to spend at least. And then say, okay, there's this amount of money here that you will get when you are done in school. That students will take everything seriously. To say, some people study, okay, first, I spoke about FUNAB, where I think there's a course called agricultural technology there. And what they do there is to generate ideas in the technological space that can help the agricultural sector even move faster and speed up things. And so they can invent a machine, for instance. They can invent a particular tool, for instance, to ensure that production is faster. Now, when that is being done, somebody who went there who studied there, and then brings his innovation and say, "Government, this is my idea, can you fund it?" Usually people have ideas that don't get funded. So I'm saying, make that space more attractive. And at some point, I guess we're going to get to the point where we start talking about solutions. But we have to make sure that the agricultural space, if I'm in school as a student and I'm looking out at my future, I should be able to see a brighter future. Somebody said that because of how tough things are now, they've put up a light at the end of the tunnel. But I should be able to stand from where I sit, even from 100 level, and say, there's a greater future for me as a person studying this course. And so if you see students who also studied anything, education, for instance, mathematics in school, English language in school, and you ask anybody out there, do you want to be a teacher? Usually they will say no, because they don't see the prospect of having a great future in that line. But that's a misconception, because I know people who studied mathematics, for instance. I know a few of my friends who studied mathematics, for instance, and then got a job in a British school. Got a job in a school paying them 300,000, 350,000 naira. So the answer to the question will be to make that sector more attractive. And again, we have to review our curriculum. A father studied, now this is the case. A man went to school, did a particular course, and then when he was done doing the course, he left school. His son, after about 20 years, went to the same school to study the same course, and it was the same curriculum that the son still went through. So they compared their notes and found out that it was copy and paste. What the father was taught 20 years ago is what the son was later taught. So we need to make that sector attractive. Again, we also have to revisit our curriculum. Yes.
Now, talking about the curriculum, that might not be revisited anytime soon, because you go to secondary school now, a junior school student is doing close to 15 subjects, if not more. And after that, you're still doing a home lesson. Where does the brain rest? That's why I like advanced countries. Please, can we have this video of this, the palm oil and the cocoa video? Now, if we look at that, Mr. Pelumi, we will see that once upon a time, Nigeria actually accounted for 43% of the world production of palm oil.
Definitely.
And look at the crude way in which palm oil is being produced. And this is a recent video. It's the agri technology which you were talking about now. If this can be addressed now, whereby there can be enhancements in production of palm oil. And as we speak now, even countries like Malaysia are way by far advanced. Why? Because the first seed of palm kernel or palm oil which they got was actually from Nigeria.
You see that?
And they are booming massively. Going over to cocoa, we're among the top 5. But as we speak now, the likes of US and Europe are the ones churning out their chocolate bars from Mars or Snickers and the likes. These are countries that actually came to take from. So it's a case of, would I be right to put it, neocolonialism, not actually the actual, or let me say neo-slavery. Let me put it that way, because they came and they are still taking and using to improvise theirs. Not to talk of the groundnuts now. We have this kuli now, which is from the groundnuts which we make now, which is even scarce now. If we had that now, I think maybe the country should have even been way by far, let me take your word, you should have had foresight to capitalize on what they actually wanted to do. Now, moving over to these statements, we have another video up, which is from Minister of Information. I need you to pick up a few things from here, which we are going to address, where he says we ought to be a net exporter, when even as at now, we can't even feed ourselves. Who are we going to export to? Can we have that video of Mohammed Idris, Minister of Information?
First, the National Security Advisor, the Director General of the State Services, the Inspector General of Police have been directed to coordinate with the state governors to look at the issue of those holding commodities. At this point that the nation requires food to be brought out to the people so that we can control prices and put food on the table of most Nigerians. Other commodity traders are busy holding these commodities so that Nigerians will suffer or they will make more money as a result. So the governors and Mr. President have taken this decision that security agencies will cooperate or collaborate with the state governors to ensure that this ends. Number 2, a decision has also been taken that in the interest of our country, there will be no need for food importation at this point. Nigeria has the potential to feed itself and even be a next exporter of food items to other countries. And we do not also want to reverse some of the progress we have seen in terms of food production in this country. What we are seeing now is just a temporary difficulty that will soon go away. Therefore, the solution to it is by continuous investment in agriculture so that food can be made available to all Nigerians. Of course, you know that Mr. President has declared emergency in agriculture many months ago. Therefore, part of the measures that he has taken is to ensure that more investments are made in this sector for the benefit of our people. The governors have also agreed to join hands with Mr. President to deepen their own investment in the agricultural sector so that more food will be made available to Nigerians. Of course, this investment is not just in crop production, it is also in livestock development and management. All this is to ensure that food is available.
That from the Honorable Minister of Information, Mohammed Idris himself. He began by stating that farmers or even those in charge of the food, which is meant to supply all and sundry, are actually hoarding it. Secondly, the case of being a net exporter, which I asked earlier on before the video came up. People are crying out for food here. So is the food actually being hoarded? Number three, if we go down memory lane, during the COVID-19 era, some warehouses were being boggled. Now, the question now is, how come we had such amount of food stuff in various locales within this country and people were hungry and palliatives were actually meant to be disbursed and they never saw them? What is actually wrong? Now, if we are going to be a net exporter because we have the food that we barely can even feed ourselves, does this statement from the Honorable Minister actually hold water?
Well, I'm surprised at what he has said, and we need to put it in practical terms to understand what this is. I don't think the statement he made, I don't think he is even convinced of what he said. Because when you have so much within your reach, it should be affordable. And the idea is this, it's just simple economics. When there is increase in supply, price will fall. In other words, that when you have more than what you are requesting for, the price should fall. And if the price, we saw a video at the beginning of this show where egg is now sold for a lot. In fact, people don't, somebody went to buy rice recently, and when he got there, grown-up man, the woman said, how much? The rice is 300. He said, do you want it? I don't want meat, just rice and stew. Because if we have so much, and things are still expensive, then you cannot say that we're going to be a net exporter of anything. Now, if the only reason you have mentioned that we're going to be a net exporter of anything is because our currency, Naira, is on a free fall, it means that anybody who owes $1 can buy so much from us, then you may be right with that. But to say within this geographical location, where getting foodstuffs, stable food is quite difficult, you cannot say that we will be a net exporter of anything. Now, the point is, before you can even choose to supply anything, you should be self-sufficient. You cannot be in the well and pull anybody out. A bicycle cannot pull out a trailer. There are issues on ground that we have to deal with. And I don't see, but if you want to talk about not important, then you have to find a way of getting farmers to go back to the farm confidently. There are certain things you cannot store. Something I didn't mention when I was speaking about why we moved, how much that we have fallen from the cadre of those, a country that was always at the forefront of the agricultural sector, now down to where we are today, is that poor storage facilities. I didn't quite mention that. I'm going to say that now. There are certain things you can't store. Because if you store these things, they get spoiled. And we don't even have the system enough to be able to keep these things and store them. So when you mention that we are going to stop importing, it means that you should have a system already that ensures that, number one, Farmers are confident. Listen, you cannot speak about progress in any country, in any economy, without security being in place. Speak about UK, for instance. You say, okay, fine, they operate a capitalist society. But again, you must understand that they are, so when you talk about capitalism in its entirety, it means that the private sector are leading things in the economy. But the government takes charge of many things, critical things. The critical part is security. The government cannot outsource that to a private firm to do. The government has to create that environment that ensures that both foreigners and those within the country are confident. But if we don't have that now, and we know that food is a major part of the economy, what will happen is we will be pressed, because usually in every country there is a part where the country stores food, okay, so that they release that every time they want to reduce the price of anything. So usually what the government does is there's a warehouse owned by the government, and they store foodstuffs there. And when the government realizes that, okay, foodstuffs, the price of food, what people buy is high, what they do is they pull out that into the economy, and then the price of that thing stabilizes to an extent. And then when they realizes that, okay, the price is not what they want it to be yet, they release more up until the time the price becomes what it wants to be. But the point is, at the moment, things are way expensive. And so we have to be careful. I watched the video before the show where a few things were being said on TV, and I concurred to the fact that we have to be careful of the policies we are trying to implement. For instance, we implemented removal of fuel subsidy, which was a good thing to do. It was good, but could have been managed better. We implemented ensuring that Naira, the exchange rate is on a free flow where people can actually, it responds to the law of demand and supply. So meaning that it was fixed before, now it's now determined, the exchange rate is now determined by the force of demand and supply. But that has affected also badly. Now, we are still here. And then you are trying to implement a policy that is good anyway, because no nation should depend on another nation for what it has to feed on. Good policy nonetheless, but we need to deal with the effects of the policies that have already been implemented. Once we can deal with that, then we can now go to talking about this. But if we have not dealt with this, then we should expect worse things to happen than it's happening already.
Thank you, Mr. Pelumi. Technically speaking now, I would say on a part of not just the government alone, but also the stakeholders, the problem here is timing. You don't bring in a policy or begin to say a thing when you know, yes, you are half-baked about it. So that's all I'll say from my own point. Nigerian farmers grapple actually with a multitude of challenges that hinder their ability to thrive and contribute to food security, as we've heard from Mr. Pelumi Aware here. These challenges include inadequate infrastructure, limited access to capital, low mechanization, climate change, and post-harvest losses. Now, it is crucial to overcome these challenges for sustainable agricultural development within Nigeria. By addressing these issues, the nation can enhance food security, generate income for farmers, and boost economic growth. Concerted efforts also from government, stakeholders, and the global or local communities should create lasting solutions and support the livelihoods of these vital agricultural contributors. The show has been Viewpoint, where we discover perspectives and embrace dialogue. I'm Odiawa AI. With me on the show, thanks for watching. You do well to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us across various social media platforms.